Hi, friends, and welcome back to Millennials Gone Circular, the podcast making circularity a reality. I am your co-host, Caitlyn Socwell, along with the fabulous Angelica Barrios and Said Fadyl. And if you're new here, welcome. It's so great to have you. In today's episode, we're getting stuck into circular business models. What they are, how are they different from our traditional and current linear models, and why they matter more than ever. You'll hear examples of models like product as a service, reuse and refill, and even some sharing platforms. Our co-host Said steps in as our in-house expert. This is literally what he wrote his master's thesis on. And together with Angelica and myself, we'll sort of round things out with some reflections and some real-world examples. So this episode is meant to introduce you to the concept of circular business models and sort of help you understand the role that circularity plays in everyday business. So let's get into it. Hello, Angelica. Hi, Said. It's so nice to be back at it with you both. How's it going?
Hey. Hello, guys.
What's happening?
I'm all right. It's been nice weather in the last couple of weeks, and yeah, I'm really already in the holiday mode. Let's say.
Yeah, 2 days to go. And tell us, Said, where you're going.
Undisclosed for now.
Undisclosed. Okay. Mystery man. Tell us all about it when you're back, at least.
Exactly.
I am very excited to report that I wrote a bakfiets today for the first time. And so a bakfiets is the bakfiets, is the Dutch word for basically a bucket bike, essentially. So in the Netherlands here, or I'm based in Rotterdam, the municipality actually has these. They have these utility bikes, I guess. So they've got a huge, big box on the front of this bike, and I had to move a few things and donate some things to my local giveaway store. And so I rented one for the first time, and it was electric, so it did all the work, and it was so cool. You can rent them for free, and so I'm still riding high on accomplishing that and being able to do it. So that is my day. Angelica, what's happening in your world?
Well, Ashley, what can I say? Today I started the day with something that I thought that it was very good for health, which was like water with a bit of sea salt and lemon instead of coffee. Because it's now what the I don't know, doctors and the medicine said is like hydrate before caffeine, right? So I started with that and try to like figure out my energy levels and productivity throughout the day just to make sure that it didn't affect it so much. And I think it's going well. So far, so good. So totally recommended, guys. So hydrate before.
Nice. So we've got sun, health, and fitness. I like it.
Yeah.
It's the perfect trio. Well, today we are focusing on circular business models, and Said, you are our expert, or our topic expert for this episode, because you literally did your master's thesis on the topic. So I guess it makes sense that you're the one who's going to be blowing our minds away today.
Whoa.
Am I setting expectations too high? Sorry.
Yeah, no pressure.
Well, as usual, let's pass it over to Angelica to talk us through some examples of circular initiatives, circular news happening around the world. Angelica.
Okay. Well, first, let's start with maybe a topic that we have been listening quite a lot. So following a pause in the trade tensions, China is ramping up efforts to modernize its power sector. So analysts suggest the country could pivot more aggressively towards renewable, digital grid infrastructure, and circular energy strategies, marking a potential rebound for cleaner energy investment. On the other hand, a new report highlights that the aluminium industry struggles to align with net zero targets, while aluminium is crucial for electric vehicles, as maybe we already have heard also in the news, and renewable energy. Its production is extremely emissions intensive. Yeah, unfortunately, producers are now exploring new ways, new circular solutions like low carbon smelting and scrap based recycling, for example. And in a rare shift, Indonesia has reported a decline in coal exports, which is quite good, in early 2025. Well, partly due to weather and logistics, the deep also signals growing pressure on fossil fuels giants to adapt to cleaner, circular business models.
I think China is a very interesting one because most people, the kind of thoughts when you think of China as like, oh, they're kind of, number one in production, but they've actually really made a killing in terms of setting up renewable energy, and the gigawattage that they've put in place in just a short time frame in the last few years is amazing. And I think they're well on their way to achieving renewable energy, their renewable energy targets.
I'm actually a bit surprised that for the last one, that Indonesia exports of coal like only decreased or declined in 2025. I don't know, I would have expected that to happen.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah,
years ago,
true.
okay,
Uh,
not late. So it's always
yeah.
good to see this news.
Yeah. Better late than never, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's talk circular business models. So, Said, I think the first obvious question to ask is, what are circular business models?
In general, like theoretically, circular business models represent a fundamental shift from traditional linear or take, make, dispose approach to business. So instead of linear flow of resources, meaning we extract natural resources, we make products, and then we dispose, the circular business models are designed to keep resources within the loops and in use as long as possible and as much as possible, to maximize the use, and then also to minimize waste. It's to understand this better. I think it's helpful to contrast it with the conventional linear model, which relies on extraction of new resources, manufacturing, and then discarding waste. And think of this instead. We buy, let's say, a tool or a product. You use it instead of using it only for once. In a circular business models, this normally mean that it could be used multiple times by refurbishing it or repairing it, for instance. And we're going to look at some examples later on to make it more explicit.
Yeah, so the moral of the story is a circular business model. We've already covered what circular economy is. A circular business model is just a business model in the traditional sense, and then pairing it with circular economy. So we're still incorporating those principles of a circular economy, which are designing out waste, keeping materials in circulation, and of course, regenerating natural systems. So thank you. These models sound ideal, and something that I, as a consumer, I hate the word consumer, but I don't know, user maybe, that I, as a user, want to support, but they're not quite everywhere yet. They definitely are more prevalent here in the Netherlands. So very lucky to be living here. But why is that, Said? Why aren't these, if this is the way forward, why aren't these business models, these circular business models, everywhere?
Yeah, fantastic question. And I don't think it's only in Netherlands, by the way. I believe there are many countries that are already taking good steps and are ahead compared to many others. But indeed, circular business models or circular business companies in general is not something that we that is widespread. And basically, because it shift or transition takes, I think, generations and to happen. And we have already talked about circular economy and the history and how long it took us to be where we are today, and we still find ourselves a bit really far behind. but also there are other factors that drives this circular business models and why we're still like not really advanced. And one of them is the consumer behavior, or also well connected with lack of awareness. So us as consumers, even though we hate to say it, uh, we are at the end the consumer. So if we are not aware of what we are buying, what we are consuming, and we don't make the right choices, then this leads to probably like consuming or purchasing
Yeah,
linear based products.
absolutely. And
Uh,
that's something that we had Tomash Slani, one of our earlier episodes, come on, and that was one of his key highlights was awareness, bringing awareness to what we're buying, consuming. So that I think really hits home for a lot of
Indeed,
us.
indeed, yeah, it's indeed. I think the first step that we need everyone, all humans, to be aware of this, and then actually to start take action. I think another challenge is the economic aspects to make profit or to be sustainable financially and be circular or offer a circular products or like circular business model based output is challenging. And also this can be linked also to the infrastructure. So to implement a circular business model, you need like an infrastructure that promotes those companies. And for instance, we can take example of recycling. To recycle, you need to collect. In order to collect, you need, for instance, infrastructure to collect equipment. You need sorting equipment. You need technology that is already advanced to sort
Mm,
all kind of waste. And this is also something we talked about with, I think, one of our previous episodes, like with textile. It's one of the
yeah,
challenging sectors. Uh,
absolutely.
and then another challenge is the fact that companies are still driven by short-term profits,
Mhm.
um, rather than thinking like long-term sustainability, circularity goals.
Yeah, it's usually
Um,
like they're always. I'm not in the corporate world, but I always hear like the Q1 profits or they're always throwing that corporate speak around, but it's always in quarters, right?
yeah,
It's you never hear like the 5-year plan or yeah,
indeed.
absolutely.
It's because thinking about it from corporate perspective, you have shareholders expecting results, and of course they need quarter reports, and they need to see um, what's going on and where the company is heading. And yeah, I think if you wanna really think circular business model or shift your organization business to be more circular, it takes a while. It takes also investments and taking risks, and also a long-term vision, which I think nowadays, well, I wouldn't say that, but it's in general, it's challenged by shareholders and investors because they need to see a business case. They need to see also, yeah, short, midterm return on investments,
Yeah,
which is not like straightforward to
yeah.
to yeah
It
to
all comes
to
to it's hard to be innovative and take risks when you have shareholders that you need to be reporting back to and showing results. And let's have said it once, I'll say it again. It comes back to our capitalist society that we live in, isn't it? Well, I'm curious, Said, is there a particular product or service that you like? We'll get into some examples, I'm sure, shortly, but is there a particular product or service that you wish you had a circular business model or something that you're currently looking to consume or purchase um, that you wish had a business model or circular business model?
where I could think of is well, related to my favorite, or like, yeah, I'd say my favorite circular business model, which is like product as a service, meaning that you don't own the product, but you rather use the service that it offers, or the benefits that it gives you. Let's say, for instance, a car, you rent it instead. And I
Yes.
think this can be
Yes.
applied to many other products that we use in our daily life. I
Yep.
think this started to happen with many other products, because renting cars is something that is like
Yeah.
traditional business, but now we see it with the, for instance, phones. We see it with bikes. We see it with like home appliances, or like any um, like construction equipment, for instance. So this is something that is becoming more and more common, and it's, I would really love to see this happening with as many products as possible.
Absolutely. That's a good example. I actually lease or rent my TV.
Oh, really?
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I think
unique.
it's about €10 a month or something, but I wanted, I'm going out there preaching to the choir, and I need to know what the experience is like, right? So that's why I did that.
This kind of like novelty that happens, or like innovation in general, um, I mean, leads to, okay, people wanting to rent or lease, and then on the other hand, like companies needs to innovate to make their product like as innovative as possible, and also as sustainable as possible, and to be able to have them used by their clients for as long as possible. Because if they take back the equipment, let's say your TV, after 6 months, and no one else is interested in renting it, that's not viable for them. And therefore they need to, it's in their interest to make it very reliable, uh, and with a long lifespan.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to jump in here and talk about designing for circularity for a second. Because that I think you touched on this a bit, and that's one of the core principles of circularity is designing out waste. So circularity is almost all about design, isn't it? So we need to be, when we're wanting to put a product on the market, we're designing it so that it's not contributing waste. So one example here, you mentioned designing product as a service. One example that's running rampant here in the Netherlands is something called swap feets. A lot of bike talk today.
Yeah.
Swap feets, it literally means like a swap bike. So you lease your bike, and anytime it needs servicing, or if you want an upgrade to an electric bike or whatever it is, you just go to the shop and swap them out. Swap feets. So that's an example of product as a service. But I think you can also be designing for resource recovery, like you mentioned before, Said. I think it was Adidas or Adidas, however you say it in your part of the country. I know they had a line of shoes at some point, and they were made with marine plastic collected from the ocean. So that's an example of designing for resource efficiency. Then you mentioned designing for, I don't know if you mentioned this actually, but designing for disassembly. So yes, we can consider recycled materials, but we're also thinking downstream when it's at the end of its life. And maybe there's a particular part that's broken. We don't need to throw the whole thing away. We can just replace that one part. It can be disassembled. Um,
It's part of, I would say, modular design, which means like you can separate the product into multiple models, so that you can take out the model that needs to be changed, or if you need to upgrade. And we've seen, I think, this also with the phone companies, I think, are doing that now, and also with car manufacturers, for instance. I mean, it's possible to change like some equipment without having to buy a new car, for instance.
Yeah. And Fairphone, have you heard of Fairphone?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good example.
they're a really great example. So designing for longevity, but also designing for disassembly. So you can, I think you can actually take it apart yourself and try and fix
Yeah.
the right to repair, right? Maybe
Mm.
that's a good episode topic, the right to repair. But then there's also principles like designing for non-toxicity and safety. So some of the clothes that we buy are actually not great. The stuff that's being printed on them, the plastics that are in them. So that's also something that the business could take into consideration when they're designing the product.
In
We
fact,
can.
there is this. Another interesting maybe topic is or framework that is developed with at EU level. It's called safe and sustainable by design, which covers both like the safety elements, like for instance toxicity, and then sustainability aspects like recyclability and circularity, like resource efficiency, energy efficiency, and other all aspects that are related to the product sustainability. And this is something that is, I mean, quite new, recent, and I would say not I think many examples in the market yet, but it's really, I think, a good reference to look at for businesses. If our listeners are in a businesses, this is something to look at because then you can really cover all the aspects when designing new products for market.
Does it also cover, because the other principle in designing for circularity is biodegradability. Is that also come under that
Yeah,
umbrella as well?
yeah. Anything like under the umbrella of product sustainability, could be considered because by the gradability of the elements of the, let's say, nature-based or bio-based materials contribute to the carbon footprint or the impact of the product at the end of the day. So that's also being considered
Yeah, yeah,
because we
okay.
use the idea with SSBD or safe and sustainable by design is to use life cycle analysis to actually evaluate how sustainable is that product.
Hey, Caitlin here. Quick break. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance that you might be a purpose-driven solopreneur who gives a sustainable shit. If that's you, come co-work, connect, and recharge with me at the Waste Not Spot's first ever co-working retreat in the beautiful sunny Metheny, Greece this October. Spots are limited. Find out more at thewastenotspot.com/retreat. See you there. Oh, and sorry, gentlemen, this one's for the ladies only. All right, well, I think we've got a really good understanding now. So if someone's listening today, they want to start a business and they're wanting to think about how to integrate circularity into their business or the product or the service. I think that you've given them some pretty good foundations or principles to think about when they're designing it. So just to recap what we've talked about. So we can look at designing for the product as a service. We can look at designing for resource efficiency. We can be designing for disassembly, for longevity. We're designing for non-toxicity and safety, biodegradability, material recovery. So using recycled materials, keeping the materials in circulation, and then also design for reuse and upcycling. So thinking about what the end life of the project is and making it easy to recycle. So thanks for walking us through those, Said.
And maybe I add just other points that also to complement this is to also look at dematerialization. This is an opportunity to look actually if you can reduce or remove ideally like some of the materials that you are using, given that you can optimize the material used in your product, and this can be done, for instance, like taking a product that is like physical product to digital product, and this has happened with, for instance, the CDs when they were replaced by platforms such as Spotify. I think this is something that hopefully we could still see in the future, to digitalize some of our physical products that we use today. We can see that also with the like note books. I think only probably few people are using now like physical notebooks. I
Yeah.
hope that they're not selling anymore. Oh,
Oh, sorry.
that's not circular.
Well, no.
But I totally
But
understand.
it
It's
helps me in my circular quest.
yeah.
Mhm.
No, it's
No, but in
totally
Casey's defense, I would say that depends on how you see it. So I was having this conversation with a colleague that is, yeah, has been many years in the paper industry, and he was explaining to me something like, yeah, but how much or less carbon intensive could be like keeping your device on all day, every day, because you do absolutely everything on your devices. So, for example, imagine that instead of taking notes in physical paper, now you're taking notes in your tablet, for example. So, it means that you will use your tablet, I don't know, 20%, 50% more than you used to do. Or with the books, like before you used to, I don't know, read your books in, in physical, but now you have it on your tablet or your Kindle. And even
Mm,
if you want to think ahead, remember that, for example, if we have a like a book or like a file in or Google Drive, those files are basically like a storage in these huge data centers in different parts of the world that consumes insane amount of energy also.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if we really want to think in a more systemic and overview of everything, it's not 100% proved that, yeah, like paper, like having physical like books or not books or whatever is necessarily less carbon intensive
We'll
than
have to do
taking
the LCA on it, the life cycle assessment. But back
yeah,
to your
indeed,
point,
indeed.
Saeed, I couldn't agree more with your point about getting rid of materials. I just bought a perfect example. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. My biggest waste pet peeves is when you go and buy I bought some protein powder the other day as part of my health regime. And they sell it to you in this huge black plastic
true.
container. Of course, you can't see through it. And then you open the container and it's half full. It is such a waste of first of all, it's a trick. They're trying to be tricksters. So it's dishonest. And second of all, it's just a way all of that plastic that went into making the rest of the other half of the container is completely useless. Gets me so angry. But I digress. Very much agree with you on that side. Um, so right now, we know that circular business models, we know what they are, and we know what we're looking out for now as an entrepreneur designing a product or a service, or maybe rethinking our current ones. What can we do? I guess there's three categories. So, what can we do as consumers? What can we do as professionals? And what can we do as founders of these services and products?
Yeah, like easiest one, like for as a consumer, easy. But if you are aware already, I think you already know what to do, and that's basically to support circular brands or companies that really developing products and services that include circularity in general in their business, by buying their products and services instead of other non-circular businesses. Then also think about repairing your products instead of buying new ones. Um, yeah, if it's not straightforward, try to, I think, find the information, how it is possible to repair or refurbish or upgrade your, especially like electronics. This is a um, common product that we always need to probably upgrade or fix. There is, for instance, like I think a company called Fix It, if I'm not wrong, which sells like um, basically a set of repairing tools that you can use yourself to fix equipment at home, like electronics or yeah, home appliances and so on. But I mean, it's if it's basic. I mean, I don't think everyone can fix any uh, like equipment's
I
problem. But
definitely
yeah, it's
would. Oh
it's
God.
possible
But
that.
but what you're saying essentially is so basically what you're saying, Saeed, is that as consumers, we can support the circular economy by following the waste hierarchy, right? And I think we've mentioned we should do a little side episode on the waste hierarchy, but essentially it's that adult, like that old age-old saying of reduce, reuse, recycle. I think those were the original three, but now there's like 10 R words.
Yeah,
Is that
indeed.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I touched upon like the first aspect of when purchasing or buying stuff in general. So I think we need to be aware what you are buying and seek information. And then when you have already stuff, you should look at the other hierarchy R's. That what you would you do? Is it actually about recycling? Yeah, repairing, and then maybe reselling again, putting back to the market things that you don't use, because then other people can use them and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's more or less like in the framework of the hierarchy of the circular economy, like aspects that needs to be taken.
Okay. I think it's a good place to start anyways. I mean, we're all consumers. Some of us are all consumers and professionals. Some of us are professionals, consumers, professionals, and founders. So
Yeah,
it's a good place to kind of get a feel for things. So what about as a professional
yeah. So
in the workplace?
as a professional, I think it's specifically if you are in the area of product design or product development, that's, I think, where you could really think about circular design, things that we talked about earlier. Um, and yeah, maybe do learn about what is possible. Try to see analogies with other products in other sectors and see what ideas, what circular thinking or circular design strategies you could use in your products. For instance, you could think about what has been used in automotive industry and try to apply that to, yeah, electronics or vice versa, or any other, yeah, products.
Yeah.
Um,
I might add in there as well, Said. So you've got the product design, the service design aspect, but then there's also the procurement side of things as well. So if you're in procurement, you can be actively looking to engage suppliers who are able to supply those circular products. So you need both. We need someone to design the product, and we need someone to buy it. So I think those are maybe the other side of the coin.
yeah, indeed. And yeah, I think procurement need indeed to be also, yeah, taken into account in design, and also the availability of the most sustainable or circular materials. And it's a great opportunity to see in the market where you can find your, for instance, recycled materials to input it in your products, for instance. um, and does it meet your requirements, for instance, for safety, for the, like, the job that needs to be done with your products and so on. So these kind of aspect as well, I think is very important. And also if you are in the area of marketing, um, yeah, I think you should be really promoting this as well, like circularity. And then I think that's what you can do probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Marketing is such an amazing tool if done consciously and not trying to trick me into thinking I've just scored a whole mountain of whey protein powder and it's half of what I ordered. Um, but it's a great opportunity to firstly set an example to other companies or businesses in your sector, in your industry. If if you are shouting from the rooftop saying, "Hey, we are putting circularity at the forefront. It's a priority for us. We give a hoot about people, planet, profit, and this is how we're doing it." Consumers are going to look at these other companies and go, "Hey, why aren't these guys doing it?" And that puts the pressure on as well. So marketing has an incredible chance and opportunity, and I think I dare to say obligation to be promoting promoting what they're doing.
Yeah, so true. And also internally within companies, it's key to also engage all the employees to think circular. Not just It's not just for the product design team to take the whole work, but I think everyone needs to be engaged in general. Not just circularity, but sustainability in general. I think this is something that is part of marketing or communication team in general. And then another role would be like in policy. So professionals in that area would hopefully promote circular circular economy policies policies that would help implement and also engage businesses in circular economy and creating market for businesses, which is a challenge we talked about earlier. So it's up to policymakers to really introduce rules and um, to give a chance to companies that are trying to have a place in the market. Otherwise, they are hidden or face a lot of competition from like large corporate who dominate the market with their traditional products.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, what about we've talked about consumer professionals. What about founders or founders of new companies, entrepreneurs, startups? What can they be doing?
I think anyone who is really into, well, starting a business, if they are already aware or they are into like the sustainability product or service design, I'm sure like 100% they're already thinking about these principles and what we have talked about today. But if you are really not in that area, you are really like in a, let's say in a mechanical engineering, and you just want to develop a business and you have no idea, I think it's good to take inspiration from existing companies that have developed circular business models. And I think one way is to think beyond ownership, how to provide service, product as a service, how, of course, to apply the circular design principles. And I think one very important aspect is to co-develop or like create collaborations with stakeholders that you would that would be relevant for your business. It could be, I mean, clients or potential clients in the future. Look into what they are looking for, look into their sustainability expectation or circularity expectations, and try to meet that, not just the business needs. That could be also an opportunity to find partners that would help you develop a business faster, and also be in an ecosystem where you have more collaboration rather than competition. I think nowadays we can find like the value in partnerships. We've seen like examples like between, for instance, battery manufacturers and automakers. So there is a good synergy, and also the battery recycles and like the waste from this factories in general. They found themselves at the end collaborating rather than competing with each other, because what you can do I cannot do, and the other way around, and it's a match and a win-win, and also win for like circularity and sustainability.
Yeah, what you just said, Said, I think you're totally right. It's like you just made me think about the industrial synergy, where it's like the output of one is the input of another. So yeah, I mean that's basically the thing, something that I for me is super important that I always keep in mind. And I think also, like, regardless of in which part of the, like, what kind of a stakeholder you are, you have to think, or you have to consider always when you're thinking about circularity, is like that's the natural way of the things to work. Like linear processes are more or less like a very restricted human perception of how things work. So when we imagine like a linear production, we are just thinking in, like, imagine that you take a full circle and you just take a small fragment of it, and that's the only thing you analyze. That's exactly what we do with linear production systems. This doesn't exist almost in nature. In nature is either cycles, or in the most like extravagant scenario, for example, fractals. Fractals, it doesn't work exactly as a cycle, but it's, for example, a very interesting way of nature to tell us that randomness exists in certain sort of way, right? So for me, that's more or less my, for example, my reflections about circularity and circular business models, and what you just mentioned about companies collaborating. This is not something new. It's how the things has always been, and I think maybe putting that in the mind of the, yeah, of the big corporations and the leaders of these corporations is something very important, because they think that when people talk about circularity and so on, they want to implement something innovative and yeah, extravagant. What it's when it's just really like this is the way it has always should be, and it has never stopped being. Linear processes are just like a very restricted human perception. It doesn't almost exist in nature.
Yeah. Yeah, amen to that, Angelica. That's absolutely, I think a lot of, again, comes down to capitalism, but a lot of the businesses that are born and have been born in the past, what, 100 some years, the main aim is to make money. So what I would challenge entrepreneurs to do is assess the product or service that they're looking to bring onto the market against the circular economy principles. Are you designing out waste? Are you keeping materials in the system by using recycled materials or biomaterials? Are you regenerating nature? If you answer no to any of these questions, why are you coming into existence if you're harming people and planet with what you're trying to do? You can't unknow that. And yeah, I would just challenge you to reconsider and look to see how you can make it more circular.
Yeah, good questions. And I want just to bring an example of how hard it is to combine both, okay, viability and answering all these questions you mentioned, Caitlin, with a case of a company in Sweden called Northvolt. I did actually my thesis there. And normally, okay, their business is about manufacturing batteries and also recycling them. And I actually did my master thesis in their business units that is dedicated for recycling. And unfortunately, it filed bankruptcy just recently. And it was, I mean, their slogan was like, we want to build the greenest battery ever for electrical vehicles.
Okay.
So it was really like the mission, and a lot of efforts were made into like the design, also the recyclability, and also the materials, like we talked about green procurement, for instance, and all these aspects. But in the end, like it didn't fly, let's say. So it's challenging to combine both, but it's possible. I think there are still like cases, and we know like example of companies that are surviving. Usually, I think it's not with huge profit. So I think the founders would need to accept, and also later on the shareholders would need to accept the reality that the business would not be about profitability and generating millions or billions of revenues or profits rather. So I think it's about this mindset. It's not all about like just the financial gain, but also probably we need to think about the sustainability gain we get as also quantified as a financial.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Said, is entrepreneurs going into the business world need to be self-aware of why they're getting into it. And that comes down to their values. And that comes down to the inner development goals, which we have promised an episode on, and it is coming up soon. So stay tuned. But I think a lot of it does come back down to who we are as a person, how aware of our values we are, and what we're giving to the planet and people rather than taking from. So yeah, I that's a great example. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I agree. Also, another thing that I was thinking, like recently I watched a movie about the Aztecs and Mayas and all of this, because also these are very well-known civilizations for living a lot like in harmony with nature, right? And many like environmentalist people, they say, yeah, we should go back a bit to those practices and the things they did back then. But also something that I reflect about it, and I don't know what are your thoughts about, maybe also you can share about it later, but it's like in these antique civilizations that were very respectful with nature and they take care of their resources a lot, and therefore they were very circular and sustainable, we should also consider the mentality of the people at that moment. Basically, they completely depend on nature. So, for example, if for that year it didn't rain, the crop will completely die, so they will starve to death, right? Nowadays, if it doesn't rain, we have more possibilities to, like, I don't know, we can completely water the crops completely, like, artificially, right? If we don't have enough sun, then we even have like a way to replace it artificially, right? So the more that humans stop depending 100% in nature, a bit the more selfish we became, and that's more or less the point we're now. So that was a bit my reflection. So I don't know what you think about that, but yeah, it was an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, I think it's coming back to our humanness. I think at the center of the circle is us as humans. So I think that fits in well. Just a quick little recap. One of the most important things that go into circular business models is the design. So when we're bringing a new product or service onto the market, or if we are looking to improve the current ones, there's certain principles that we need to be following. We went through a nice little summary before, but essentially we can design the product for a service. We want to be efficient in our resource use. We can be designing for disassembly, longevity, safety, biodegradability, material recovery, but also designing for reuse and upcycling when we know that the product gets to the end of its life. And of course, we want to test the product or service against the circular economy principles, which are designing out waste, keeping materials in circulation, and regenerating nature. So if we're not meeting any one of those principles, we need to go back to the drawing board and see what we can do to meet those. So Said, you've given our audience by consumer, professional, and entrepreneur. Can you give our audience one takeaway, one action that they can turn off their Spotify or podcast platform and go and do right now?
I would say spread the word and to have more awareness, I think, because I
Okay.
think that's the key step, and then everything else comes with curiosity and learning. Once you are aware, you can do the rest.
I'm going to take that a step further and say, John, Mary, Margaret, whoever's listening right now, go and talk to your dad, grandma, great grandma, whoever's still around that was living generations before you, and have a chat to them about circular economy. You might find that there wasn't a word for it really back then. It was just the lifestyle, and see what comes up. So I challenge you to have one conversation with an elder in your family or community. Any favorite resources, Angelica, Said? Any particular resources for circular business models?
No, that I will only say that how to avoid a climate disaster. I think they mention a lot about like business and yeah, how to make more resilient and circular businesses. So I think it will also be a quite good resource.
Yeah, good one, Angelica. We'll put that for sure in the show notes. And there's always the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. They've got a great website of resources to dive a little deeper into some of the topics. They've got nice little infographics as well. And you can always send us an email with any of your questions. We're happy to refer on as well. Okay, well, let's let that be that for today. Thank you, Said and Angelica, for joining. Said, it's amazing that you've imparted all of your wisdom onto us today. So thank you for that. We will be back again in a couple of weeks with our next episode. So stay tuned. We'll see you then.
Well, that is a wrap on episode 9 of Millennials Gone Circular. We hope this deep dive gave you a bit of a better understanding of what circular business models are and how they can be a game changer for the economy, our environment, and people. If you're working on a circular product or a platform or a business, we'd really love to hear from you. So get in touch and let us know all the juicy details about your learnings or your failures or your successes. And if this episode sparks something in you, please follow us, share it with a friend, or leave a review. It really, really, really helps more people find the podcast. But before we go, Millennials Gone Circular is a production of The Waste Not Spot. The Waste Not Spot recognizes the many traditional landowners around the world and their continued stewardship of our planet. We pay our respects and offer our deepest gratitude. Until next time. Millennials Gone